So in this video I'm going to show you how to install and do the initial setup of the clinical eye tracker. So you can download the software that you need from the distributors page. The first thing you should really do is download the Tobii driver. There are two versions here. You should normally just use the latest version. Occasionally you might run into problems with the latest version, in which case we've also put an earlier version there as well. It's got slightly fewer features, but seems to be a little bit more robust for some computers. So download the Tobii driver, run the driver, plug in the Tobii bar, make sure it connects, and when it connects the red lights will come on, and then there are a few things that you need to do just to set up the driver, and we'll cover that in another video. So we'll assume that you've got the Tobii bar up and running. So I'm going to show you now how to install the clinical eye tracker. So you just click on clinical eye tracker link here, click on save file. I'm using Firefox, so it downloads that file at the top of the screen here, and then you just run that file, and it may put up a few warnings along the way about not recognizing it. Ignore all those or override those. Click on run anyway, and it will then run the MSI file and run through the install procedure, which will install the software. By default, it puts it in the root directory and a subdirectory called Clinical Eye Tracker 2020. It won't overwrite previous versions, so you can install this even if there is an earlier version of the Clinical Eye Tracker already installed on the computer. If you want to change the directory or change the name of the subdirectory, you can do that, but it's generally best just to stick with the default values. And if I click on next, and again, it will install the software pretty quickly, and click on close, and you should find that there's an icon now on the desktop. When you click on the icon, it will run through the registration process. At this stage, you will need to contact us with full details of the end user. We put that into our license server, and it will then generate a code which we will send to you. And in this case, I'm just registering my own name, and that's the activation code. And we click on activate, and job done. So the software is now installed. It's got online licensing, so it won't need to be renewed. We can, if we need to, turn off the software. So if they want to transfer a license from one computer to another, then we can do that directly from the license server. I'll just show you a couple of things about the licensing actually, which you might be interested in. If you go to help and then click on check license, it will put up the same information there. You can actually deactivate this license. So if you want to put the software on another computer, you can just deactivate this one, and that will send a message back to the license server, close that program down. You could then install the software on another computer and use the same code, and it will then run, but it won't run on both systems simultaneously. But that can be quite useful if you want to have the software on two different computers but not use it at the same time. When I run the software again, it's remembered the activation code, so all you need to do is to reactivate it, and assuming that you haven't got it activated on another computer, that will just work straight away. So there are a couple of things I need to show you in terms of the setup. It will load a sample database with just one set of results, just so that you know everything is running as it should. But there's a couple of settings that you should be aware of. So to go to the settings menu, you click on settings here, and then click on settings. So you can put the end user's own logo on the reports. by just browsing to a JPEG of their logo and selecting that. You can also scale that logo, and you can put the practice name in there. That will appear on the top of the reports. By default, the database is called pxdata.db, and it's stored in a subdirectory of the main program directory under personal. If you want to start again, if you want to create an empty database, then you can click on new and just give the database a name, and that will create an empty database. You can also change the data and report directory here, and that's the top level. It should be under the eye tracker data. So if you want to load in the data or use the data from a previous version of the eye tracker, you will need to browse to the database used by the previous version. So look it up, looking at the settings of the previous version, see where the database is and what it's called, and then within the Clinical Eye Tracker 2020, browse to that same database file and select it. But you also must select the same data and report directory. So select the Clinical Eye Tracker 2017-18, whatever it may be, and Eye Tracker data. And that will then point the program towards the raw data files in the right place. So the other setting you'll need to look at are the Windows positioning. And so the program needs two windows, two screens. And so you've got a clinician screen, and then you select the screen that the Toby bar is attached to. So if that's screen 2, there we are, and it's now automatically set the position of that window, and all of the stimuli will now appear on screen 2 where the Toby bar is, and the clinician screen will be screen 1. So those are the basic setup things you need to set up when you first run the Clinical Eye Tracker. You might also want to just select the appropriate language there as well, but that essentially will get you up and running with the new version of the Clinical Eye Tracker. I'll just show you where the files are stored, just for your reference. So if I just look at File Manager, so I have installed this in the default location, which is in the root directory. Then we've got Clinical Eye Tracker there. So there's a load of program files in the main directory there. That's the main exe file. And then you've got the eye tracker data. So the database file is stored under personal. This is the default database file. There's also a questionnaire file. You'll be aware that you can actually run a questionnaire within the Clinical Eye Tracker to get various bits of information about the patient at the same time as the eye movement recording. So that's where the database is stored. This is where the actual raw data is stored. So for every recording, there are 3 files are saved. So there's one that actually stores the binocular eye movement data, so the mean data of the right and left eye. This one stores the raw data for the right and left eyes, and this stores the positional data. So that's where the data is. Report images go there. That's where it's a good place to put the logo of the practice. And these are the stimuli files. So these are the images that are used in the image library, and the text that's used in the text library, and any videos there, and then the images that you use for the cover test. So you can actually load images into these libraries from within the program, but if you've got a lot of images that you want to add to the library, you can simply drop them into this directory and it will find them. Just one more thing to say about the Clinical Eye Tracker. This now has automatic updates built in. So if you click on Help and then click on Check for Updates, it will then see if there is an update to the program. So that's it. That's how you install and set up the Clinical Eye Tracker 2020.